Welcome to Naked Spirituality, a video blog series of sacred attention therapy in the Center for Human Awakening. My name is Rob Meager. For more information about sacred attention therapy, the Center for Human Awakening, and our video blog series, please visit our website at www.centerforhumanawakening.com, and center is spelled C-E-N-T-E-R. These video blogs are intended to be spontaneous, unscripted dialogues between myself and other supporters of the center. Our guest today is Joel Simpson, and we'll be talking to Joel about his integrative heart and soul counseling work. And I'd now like to invite Joel to come on screen.
Hey,
Hello,
Robert.
Joel.
Hey, Robert.
Nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you too.
Where are we reaching you today, Joel?
I'm in London, England.
You're in London, England.
Just gone sort of 8:05 in the evening.
Okay. It's always a treat to speak to different therapists and healers from around the world, so it's always nice to know where people are calling in from.
You're in Ottawa, is that right?
I'm in Ottawa, Canada, yes, on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
It's beautiful how technology can bring us together.
It is. It's a pleasure to be with you.
So your website, Joel, describes your approach as quote, an inclusive heart-centered practice.
Yeah.
An inclusive heart-centered practice. So to begin, Joel, could you describe for us, what is this integrative heart and soul counseling that you do?
I guess the integrative part is the sense that I appeal to lots of different modalities and approaches.
Mm-hmm.
So perhaps part of that is I spend some time with clients sort of exploring what may have happened in their early years and looking at their early attachments and those sort of things, and how the past might be influencing the present.
Mm-hmm.
Alongside that, we might also look at what's going on in the here and now together. And looking at very much in terms of the relationship that is occurring between us and all of what is evoked and emerging between us, and alongside looking at more transpersonal longings as well. So maybe looking at what they might be yearning, what they might be called to, and I guess there's a sense of integrating those approaches, and I guess working very much with the spontaneity of my own heart, I guess, in coming to relationship with the clients that I work with. Yeah.
Spontaneity is mentioned a couple of times on your website, and you bring it up here. I find it's such a significant core component of the therapeutic encounter, and allowing spontaneity to lead us in a way, because that's where the heart, that's where the soul is leading us. It's interesting, you already mentioned your very background in terms of training and bringing it all together in an integrative way. How do you find you bring these together for yourself and for the client in that therapeutic encounter, in that therapeutic setting?
Well, I guess I very much appeal to, the archetype of the wounded healer. So I draw on my own wounding in order to be with the clients in theirs, and somehow that supports me in my work, enabling us to have a real meeting, which isn't just about having compassion or just about having empathy, but allows for, it really allows for the depth, and that includes the heights along with the with the sorrow and with the pain and with the heartache somehow, and really giving a space to give attention to that for the people that I work with. Yeah. And I guess I bring all of that to my work. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, and I want to dive into that because you brought up this idea of the wounded healer and being able to come to and work with the client, the
Uh-huh.
therapy, through your own healing. And
Mm.
I wanted to ask, how did you get into this work? Why were you drawn to this work? Because, again, I want to emphasize your website has a very healing feel about it.
Mm.
It beautifully describes what you invite in the sharing with the client. And it comes from a place of authenticity. I mean, it's clear.
Mm.
And so, how did you get into this work?
I guess through, again, through my own wounding and through my own process of coming into relationship with myself. I think when I came out as a gay man, that really changed the course and direction of my life, because I guess that all the pillars that had made me me, or the me that I consciously identified with,
Yes.
began to topple over.
Mm.
And there was lots that died, and there was lots that I had to grieve and I had to mourn. And there was a real process of being in that liminal space where I couldn't really make sense of what it was that might be emerging from me. And I guess in doing that, a lot needed to be reclaimed, such as my voice, such as my life trajectory, such as how I might come into relationship with others, such as my spiritual life. And I guess in that process, it gave me the opportunity to really go into the areas in my life that I had been avoiding and that had been held in shadow somehow, to see what might there be there for me, what might I be yearning for, what might I be called to. And a big part of that was, I think, the union with a real authentic self, which I'm still discovering. And somehow that is, I guess, what part of my practice is about, providing that space for others to come into relationship with themselves, reclaiming that which might be lost or which might not yet be discovered. And I guess I do that with a range of people from a range of backgrounds, of different sexualities and genders, and from different faith communities and religious communities. There's nothing dogmatic in the approach, because everybody's journey is unique, if you like, but somehow there is this work around soul making, which I am committed to and continuing to explore with my clients. And there is that sense of mutuality. There isn't a I am the learned expert therapist who is on high, is going to fix you. It's really about coming into relationship, because so much of our wounding occurs in relationship. And I guess part of my growing awareness is that the healing too can come through being in relationship. And it's difficult to be in relationship, because though we might long to be seen, being seen is also really scary. And being heard is scary, and being listened to is scary. So somehow that which we long for is also that which we are afraid of. And I guess in my work, I like to give attention to the fear too. And I guess because I too am in that ongoing process myself, it allows for the space and that mutual space to really, as much as possible, meet my clients. I don't always achieve that, and there's often always that difficulty, but somehow it's what I am working towards. Yeah.
It's beautifully expressed, Joelle. And one thing I found very interesting in what you've just shared in explaining how the therapeutic encounter may unfold. You've talked a fair amount about things that may be perceived or seen as coming out of some of the traditional psychologies. So the psychoanalytic theories, the behaviorist theories, when you talked about going back and touching on early life experiences, so on and so forth. But very early on in our discussion here, you talked about taking a transpersonal approach, which if one sees the psychological theories as linear, there was the psychoanalytic theories, then came along the behaviorism, then the humanism, and then the transpersonal. So again, I want to draw attention to your very broad spectrum of background and modalities that you draw on. How do you find you bring what might be seen for many kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum, born out of the traditional, psychoanalytic theories, to the transcendental or the transpersonal and all that may unfold in between? How do you find you bring these together, or do you?
I guess because I draw on life, and life has those things which are juxtaposed. We have the joy with the sorrow, and sometimes those two things, though they might seem opposite, somehow they perhaps can sit together. And I guess I draw on those different aspects at different times for different things. To me, there's a complement in those approaches. They don't necessarily seem to me that approaches that need to necessarily sit apart, because even as human beings, we are varied, and somehow I guess it's interesting because as I'm talking to you, I've noticed that I'm finding my words and I'm trying to find a way for it to make sense. And I guess I describe my work as soulful. And sometimes there is something in soul which doesn't necessarily make sense. From an ego perspective, we need it to be clear in this moment. I'm wanting it to be clearly defined so that my approach feels like it comes together. But there is something in the work of soul which allows for the mystery, which allows for that sense of spontaneity again, that, even when I think about some of my clients who can be so broken, and in that space, perhaps they ought to literally die. Some are suicidal, yet out of that mystery of the two wounded beings come together, there is still somehow the opportunity for life. Though there is death, there is also the opportunity for rebirth. So perhaps my honest answer is, how do all those differing perspectives sit together when they look like they should be contrasting, come together? I don't know.
The alchemy of the mystery is just that.
Yeah,
a mystery.
It's just that.
It's just that.
It's
now,
just that.
You mentioned...
how is it that, again, thinking about your previous question about my previous history, how is it that I should bring all of that pain to this moment with you in this conversation to allow for the richness of this spontaneous moment, and to be able to simply say that I don't know all the answers, but somehow something is alive and something is working. What is life? What is death? I don't know, but somehow we attend together to the mystery of that.
And our role, if anything, as the therapist in the setting, is to create a space, is often the word, but just maybe be a guide to allow that to unfold, and for the other to find their way and accompany them on that journey, perhaps.
Perhaps. I like the perhaps because it's still that sense of I don't know.
Yes.
And somehow that I don't know is so difficult for us as human beings because
Yes.
it must be clear, it must be
Yeah.
defined. We don't like grey. I sometimes don't like grey. You know, we want to transcend things so that it's clear, and somehow there is something about growing down into the uncertainty, growing down into the unknown. And that's a difficult place to be, but it's also a liberating place to be because it means that perhaps we don't have to be so fixed. A year or so ago, I wouldn't have done this interview with you because I had that fear of what I said today being it, being absolute. There's nothing absolute about this. It's just as I find it in this moment. And I guess I'm with my clients in that, of being able to unhook from some of those absolutes to explore the uncertainty and the unknown.
You just mentioned the client now, and you've referenced it before. For someone watching and listening, what can a person expect when they come to see you for the first time?
Well, space to be heard. And I don't make light of that because perhaps all therapists might say that, or we might all endeavor for that. But actually, to be heard, I think, is such a privilege. And so for me to offer that space for my clients to be heard isn't something that I take lightly. I'd hope that my clients could come into the appreciation that I am willing to sit alongside them for as long as we need to do so. Compassion and an openness and an availability, and to meet them where they're at, to go at the pace that they are at, without imposing my ideas, because my ideas are just that. But in the space, it's giving my clients the opportunity to come into contact with themselves. So many of us have had to shut ourselves out. We've had to put on masks, we've had to put on facades, and sometimes that begins to rub. And so I would hope that my clients could get the opportunity to begin to come into contact with, you know, the intuitions and the secret longings and the things that you put off and the words that you're not allowed to say and the feelings that you're not allowed to have. And somehow maybe there might be space in my practice for them and their growing authentic selves. That's a lot, because you asked me what might they expect in that first session, but it might be the beginning of an opportunity to come into contact with life on their terms. One of the most profound things I learned when I first began to train was about saying no. And so many of us need to say no to things in our lives. But when we say no, we get to say yes. And there is something in that space that when clients might begin to say no to something, they might begin to say yes to themselves. And that still enlivens me. I find it really juicy. When you get to say yes to yourself. Yeah. Because so much of our family scripts and our religious scripts and our work scripts and our societal scripts and our, gender scripts and our sexuality scripts says we've got to do something in particular. And some of us feel a little bit trapped in that. And it's okay to adhere to all those truths. We don't have to throw everything away. Some of those things might still be important, but we might want to change a few things, explore a few things. I'm saying a lot, Robert, but I guess I'm enlivened by my work, and I'm enlivened by the potential healing in my work for myself and my clients, because when we come together, there is something mutual in that process.
That's right.
And when individuals are coming into contact with healing, it impacts the collective. So my work that I have been doing with my therapist is now being exercised in my practice. It's been spoken about with you. It's going on YouTube, and somehow that impacts the collective. It's not for everybody. Not everybody's going to want to work with me. I get that, but some may. And some will, and some do. And we're causing a little bit of a ripple in our own lives, in our family lives, in our society, and that feels great.
Now, Joelle, if someone wanted to reach out to you and get in touch with you, how could they do so? By email, through your website, through social media? What are means that people could get in touch with you, Joelle?
They can go to my website, joelsimpson.co.uk.
Okay.
They can email me at joel@joelsimpson.co.uk.
Okay.
I am on Twitter. Oh my goodness, this whole social media thing. I'm on Instagram, joelsimpson_love notes. And I'm on Twitter, @joelsimpsonsoul. That's it. I think I do know it, actually. Okay. So yes, Twitter @joelsimpsonsoul. Instagram, Joel Simpson_love notes, and joelsimpson.co.uk is my website.
Very good. We'll make sure that that's scrolling in the credits at the end.
Sure.
Okay.
Please.
Joelle, it's been a joy and a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us. And I'd like it if we can stay in touch.
Yeah, it's my real honor. I feel like I've said lots to you, but as we spoke, the moment, well, it brought what it brought.
It did indeed, and it was blessed. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert.
Bye-bye.
Blessings to you. Bye-bye.